I'll call the meeting to order of the City of Royal Oak Planning Commission. This is a special meeting, July 16th. We're going to need to do a roll call. So, Ms. Beakey?
Present.
Ms. Douglas?
Present.
Mr. Gontina?
Present.
Mr. Klooster?
Present.
Is the mayor on? Mayor Fournier? Mayor Fournier is absent, and then we've got Mr. Casada is recusing himself, so we do have a quorum. Okay, we're going to move on to item C on this agenda. This is public comment on non-agenda items. Mr. Twing, did we get any public comment on non-agenda items?
Yes, and I believe Carol will play those two for you, and I believe there were roughly 20.
And this is non-agenda?
They're all public comments regarding the public comment.
Okay.
According to the city attorney, all items received under public comment should be played, so
Okay.
play
I
those.
got you. Okay, thank you.
John Pomeroy. I live at 4116 Seminole Drive, Michigan. I do not want this pawn shop to destroy our neighborhood here. To put a pawn shop in downtown Royal Oak, that's perfectly fine with me, but not near residential property. Thank you very much. Bye.
This is Erica Sykes. I'm a 15-year resident of Royal Oak, and I'm calling in to comment on a non-agenda item and discuss my extreme displeasure at how you are running this special meeting for the Planning Committee. To be specific, I'm very concerned that you are not allowing additional public comment on the only item on tonight's agenda, Zeidman's Julian Loan Special Land Permit. Last week's meeting was adjourned. It wasn't closed, which should allow for further comment. And given the special circumstances that we find ourselves in due to COVID-19, accommodation should be made to ensure the public is not disenfranchised. Seeing how this subject matter is still up for consideration and a vote, why wouldn't it be in the best interests of the residents of Royal Oak and for this committee to hear any additional comments from the public before rendering your vote? I've just taken some time to think about why is it that Mr. Singh is not allowing additional public comment, and I've come up with some possible reasons, all of which should be very concerning to the residents of Royal Oak. One, he doesn't want residents listening in tonight to hear the overwhelming opposition to this special land permit. He doesn't appreciate or find it necessary to hear from the public. He is supposed to be serving and representing before rendering a decision. Or three, there is already a predetermined outcome that has been established for approving this special land permit that you are going to be voting on tonight. Our city leaders recognize that adult-oriented businesses present a risk to our community, and in an effort to protect citizens' property values and quality of life in their neighborhoods, they created guidelines for where these adult-type businesses should be located so they don't harm residential neighborhoods and affect our property values. This is like probably the single biggest investment that we make in our life is our home. When these guidelines were created, hundreds of studies documenting the harm that these types of businesses can bring into the community were used to back up the reasons for creating a special zone for these types of businesses. There are a lot of reasons why this committee should be opposed to this request that you're going to be voting on tonight. I urge this committee to follow the established guidelines for where a pawn shop is allowed to be located, or for that matter, for any business that qualifies as an adult-oriented business. If you do follow these guidelines, your only option available is to vote no to tonight's agenda item. Thank you. My name is Carrie Seach. I'm leaving this message with regard to the marijuana dispensary and pawn shop interest at Woodward and Dakota in Royal Oak. As a Royal Oak resident, I am expressing my opposition to the businesses, as this category of enterprise is not conducive for a healthy neighborhood community. The neighborhood consists of many children of all ages, children who are still cognitively and emotionally developing, children who like to explore their neighborhood and, with their friends and family, and doing so safely. Business enterprises have the ability to influence community engagement and prosperity, but in this case, a marijuana and pawn store will negatively influence children and their community. So again, I'm opposed to the marijuana and pawn shop businesses, and I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you.
Is Charles Simtina, and I intend to leave a public comment on a non-agenda item discussion that focuses on a few legal aspects contained in your local zoning ordinance and other laws dealing with site plan approvals, special land use approvals, and adult-oriented businesses. In general, I have noticed that the Planning Commission frequently omits the required findings of fact that must be stated on the record and voted on for each and every separate criteria required for approval of a site plan or a special land use permit. A finding of fact is needed. The Court of Appeals has said that it's required, and other laws say that it is required. And what is a finding of fact? You used to do that all the time. I know that Commissioner Casada frequently would attempt to make some findings of fact, but I know he has recused himself last week and this week. But it has to be findings of fact where you evaluate evidence presented on each and every criteria and determine if those facts are sufficient and true. A finding of fact is not a conclusion or a assumption provided by a petitioner. It's actual facts and evidence that you give weight to, that weight is sufficient to approve that component or that criteria. The petitions you typically have site plan conditions that must be met. The site plan approval process has several conditions and criteria. The most important ones in my reflection upon them are that these proposed uses will not be injurious to the surrounding neighborhood, and that the use protects the general health, safety, welfare, and character of the city. You need to determine that in a finding of fact. You also need to determine whether the location of the buildings is such that the adverse effects of these uses will be minimized. All laws of the city of Royal Oak also need to be considered. The special land use permits also require findings of fact for each and every separate criteria. There are many of them, but some of the language is similar to the site plan approval language, where they require the use will be harmonious and in accordance with the general objectives of any specific objectives of the master plan. All over the master plan, multiple locations, one of the primary objectives is the preservation of neighborhoods. It cannot be hazardous or disturbing. It should be an improvement to the properties in the immediate vicinity. It can't be using too many of the public services, and consistent with the intent and purposes of the entire chapter and other laws of the city. Everything needs to be put in context with all the laws and zoning ordinance provisions. My name is Charles.
My name is Terry Nagel, and I am expressing my displeasure. I do not agree with having the pawn shop on Woodward, so I want to just express that I would not want that to be on Woodward. We do not need a pawn shop there. Thank you. Bye.
It's Chris Nagel. I live at 1013 East 2nd Street, Royal Oak, Michigan. And I'm calling to express my displeasure with the pawn shop on Woodward. Only extracts no reason to have it there. And if you are considering also, there's a residential building being put up on 11 Mile Road behind my house. I'm also against that too. It's a 4-story residential building being built at 1013 East 2nd Street, Royal Oak, Michigan. Thank you. Bye.
Mary Dragon. I live at 4407 Elmwood in Royal Oak. I'm calling to voice my concern for the Golden Basket and the former store that was the Army Navy, that from what I understand is turning into a marijuana dispensary and a pawn shop. We have many children in this neighborhood. It's been a safe place to raise kids. We don't want it to change because there's riffraff coming into the neighborhood because of the kind of stores that they are. We also feel that it would make the our values, the home values, go down, and it's a concern. So we do not want the dispensary and the pawn shop going up. So I wanted to register my complaint. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
My name is Joe Leduca. I live at 4356 Elmwood in Royal Oak. I am totally opposed to the allowing the use of Army Navy and Golden Basket for a pawn shop and a pot store. I live 2 side streets away from that, and I do not want to see my house value go down because of this. You steal something, you pawn it, you walk across the street to the pot store. How convenient. This is getting pushed through during COVID where nobody can come in there and speak on it. It's being pushed through by the ex-mayor, and the whole thing stinks to high heaven. Thank you. Goodbye.
4366 Elmwood Avenue. I am on the corner of Elmwood and Dakota, 2 blocks east of Woodward, which means I'm right there in the vicinity where you want to put a pawn shop and a pot shop. And of what I understand, make one of those buildings 2 stories high. Period. This is totally unacceptable in a neighborhood filled with kids on a very busy street as it is already. Plus the fact you tried to ram this through during COVID-19 when nobody knew what was going on, and now all of a sudden you're shoving it through down people's throats. Most people who live right here, the people who are going to be most affected, are very upset. Do you really want this? Put it in your own neighborhood. Put it to downtown Royal Oak. Keep it out of our residential area.
Wallace Anderson, 404 Mount Vernon Boulevard. The non-agenda concern I have is that the noticing requirements and procedures for variances in Royal Oak seem designed to stifle citizen information and participation. Section 770.13b specifies notice of variances requests be sent to only people with property 300 feet from the site. Generally, then, not many people even know a variance is proposed. Lately, I've been impressed by Birmingham's policy, which is much more inclusive of the citizenry. Signs including notice of the hearing date are posted timely in the right-of-way. I was startled and appalled to discover that public comment on this line is only for non-agenda items. That agenda item public comment is already closed. What in the world are citizens able to provide public comment on agenda items in this COVID-19 world of virtual meetings? I couldn't find a notice about commenting earlier, but then I am probably not in the know about where and when to look. That feels deliberate. I am sending my public comment on the agenda item via email and ask it to be given to the Planning Commission members as part of the meeting agenda. It's outrageous that citizen input is so thoroughly squelched. Shame on Royal Oak.
Nancy Seach at 4507 Elmwood, and I'm weighing in on the possibility of a marijuana dispensary and a pawn shop going in the Joe's Army Navy and Golden Basket. I don't think it's appropriate for this type of retail to sit so close to a neighborhood church or school. It is bad enough to have one of these businesses move in, but both would affect property values, deface Woodward Avenue, and start to resemble 8 Mile. If these are allowed, it would send a message to other like businesses to apply. This type of venue should be contained in industrial sections without neighborhoods. This would negatively influence children and developing adolescents and enable unhealthy substance reliance and bad practices. I oppose strongly to both even being considered for this neighborhood. Would you tolerate this where you live? My number is 248-549-6191, and this better be presented at tonight's meeting. Thank you.
My name is Mary Zart, and I'm calling in response to the pawn shop proposed on Woodward Avenue. And I have to say that I am vehemently opposed to it. I understand the owner, Zeidman's been in trouble with the FBI. The property is too close to a church and a playground. And I think it's just going to make that area in Royal Oak devalue in homes. And it's just, I can't even conceive that Royal Oak would even allow this. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, this is Cynthia Flack, 4134 South Fulton Place, Royal Oak, Michigan. I'm calling to give you some reasons about why we do not want the pawn shop to be placed in the old Joe's Army Navy building. Number one, it doesn't keep up with the code for the distance from a church. Number two, it doesn't keep up the code for the distance from a school. And we are concerned about the type of people who would be coming into our neighborhood to do business at the pawn shop. Also, don't like the idea of them taking down, buying 3 houses in the neighborhood and then turning it into a parking lot. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Wolf 333 North Troy Street, apartment 1511. I am commenting tonight not on case number SP0200608 specifically, but I believe the action taken tonight to not allow public comment on this issue is illegal, and that the petition that was submitted on the website is also illegal. I hope the neighborhood obtains a lawyer and sues the city. My comment tonight is also on the proposed marijuana supermarket that's supposed to go in the same neighborhood, that also goes against the variance clause in our charter. This commission is out of order. The conflicts of interest are numerous, and this disregard for resident wishes needs to stop. You are taking advantage of an emergency situation, the COVID-19 situation, and disallowing people to come and object to and speak their mind and object. This is outrageous, and it will not stand. Wolf 333.
My name is Sarah Traxler. I am a resident of Royal Oak. I live at 2616 Spring Cliff. And my neighborhood is the Northwest subdivision, and I travel along Woodward Avenue, of course, quite often, both on foot and in my vehicle. And I wanted to comment generally about the city's land use policies and zoning codes as they pertain to Woodward, which, put simply, I think are inappropriate for such a high visibility corridor that, albeit is on the edge of town, but is still the way that so many of our neighbors who don't live in Royal Oak are familiar with our community. I think that there are many missed opportunities along the corridor in terms of redevelopment potential and potential for nodes of interesting mixed use development. And until you seriously consider the planning and zoning environment by either opening up the master plan or preparing a corridor plan with your neighbors along the corridor, we will continue to see the types of locally undesirable land uses that you basically seem to have planned for this edge of the community. I understand the propensity to code for things that you're not too sure about their locations and put them on the edge of town. Woodward is a regionally significant corridor that I think really could be better. So I encourage the city to undertake a study, and I'm happy to participate in any way that may be desirable. So thank you, and I appreciate your consideration of my comments.
My name's Joyce, and I am a resident of Royal Oak and would like no special zoning allotments or abatements given for the possible pawn shop and or marijuana depot. I think there's plenty of vacant buildings that could be for lease without having to infringe on the neighborhood there. If this isn't the proper format to address it, I did submit a written comment as well. But I would like the commission to have those renters seek other locations that would be conducive without making any changes to the zoning procedure. Thank you.
4247 Tonawanda, Royal Oak. I want to express my displeasure with the possibility of a marijuana and pawn shop being located at Woodward and Dakota. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Tom Kopsch. I'm a chiropractor located at 32268 Woodward Avenue in Royal Oak. The proposed businesses are located next door and one building north of my practice. I've been in practice since 1991 and I've always struggled with parking. Parking is always and has been and will continue to be an issue. I firmly believe that the employees and patrons of this business will take up the majority of public parking along the parking throughout the neighborhood, thus taking parking away from patients that are in pain that need to park along with other patrons of family-owned businesses that count on parking. It is disheartening that this proposal has even been considered. It will be determined by it'll be detrimental to family-owned businesses, to taxpayers that live in the well-established area of Royal Oak, along with the church, playground located so close, and schools. Not to mention property values will most likely decrease because of these types of businesses. I understand that the business owner, Thomas LeBret, is linked with corrupt and criminal acts in his past. It is my understanding he has been charged and indicted in the past. These business owners and family residents do not need corrupt business owners bringing a pawn shop business and jewelry / loan and the cannabis store to a well-established neighborhood. The clientele this business attracts are people desperate and in need of cash. And this is a well-established family business area with families, churches, and playgrounds. Also, between the bus systems between Detroit and Pontiac, it can be, a very easy thoroughway for them, exit and entrance to possibly bringing crime to the area. Just really do not think it's a great idea. They can come and go. Also, please keep in mind that this plan does not meet any of the required criteria for a special land use permit and zoning. So I'm not even sure why it's on the table, because it impedes the church, the school, and the playgrounds. And it guarantees the attorneys and developers being paid off or paying off political officials. I hope that's not the case. But officials and those on the zoning board that are voting should not have any connections, partnerships, or vested interests. Clearly they do, or otherwise this meeting would not even be happening. So it's pretty confusing. Please consider the church, playground, professional businesses, and all the families this will affect. How would you vote if your business, family, home, or church was located next to a door or behind the proposed businesses? You have been elected to an important position to do the right by the community. Take it seriously and make a difference. Say no.
My name is Carol Gale, 3656 Betsy Ross in Royal Oak, and I'm calling to say that I'm not in favor of the changes for zoning ordinance for the pawn shop property on Woodward. I live very close to that area, and I do not feel that it is a business that will be harmonious and in accordance with the general objectives of the master plan. It's just not, part of our intended character of the general vicinity, and it's just, I don't support changing the plan to allow this business. Thanks very much.
Show 617 Dewey, Royal Oak. Let's start with the message on this line that comments about the special land use tonight will not be played. You'll be violating the Open Meetings Act. The meeting was adjourned, so therefore it starts over again. The Planning Commission should deny this proposal tonight, but all of you political appointees will approve it for all the wrong reasons. The plan doesn't meet any of the required criteria for special land use permits. Zoning ordinance section 770-11C for criteria. It's got zero parking. You expect them to park in the neighborhood streets. Violates the setback for a church. Violates the setback for a playground. Violates the setback for residential property, and so on. However, look at the players. Dennis Cohen is paying for a special meeting tonight, or offered to, so that his client wouldn't have to wait until the next scheduled meeting. The Planning Commission didn't have meetings for 3 months, but now they can have 2 in 1 week. The main petitioner for the property officially was someone different, a realtor. But it appears the real petitioner is Thomas Lebret, who was involved in numerous questionable activities back in the Monica Conyers days. On June 9th, 100 pages of attachments for the pawn shop petition. However, on page 30 to 32 is a letter from Dennis Cohen to the Planning Commission that CC's Thomas Lebret. For some reason, it looks like you're trying to hide his name, and Mr. Cohen made a mistake. Even so, last week, Timmy Twing pushed everybody to proceed for a vote without public comment. And contract attorney Mark Liss, who spends most of his time emailing Warren while we're paying him to do Royal Oak work, didn't give any legal advice to the contrary. Pay to play is alive and well. Dennis Cohen and Krieger Klatt are representing the petitioner and have also represented most of the other questionable projects in this town. Both are large contributors to Mayor Fournier and Commissioner Douglas, so both should recuse themselves from the vote tonight. Krieger held a large fundraiser for the mayor's last election campaign, saying all the money went to the animal shelter. It was not on the campaign finance, but there was cash that paid the reeferman, cash that paid the caterer, cash that went everywhere else. Do your homework, spend some time, file the money, it becomes clear. And shortly after that, Krieger Klatt received a $585,000 no-bid contract from the same people we just mentioned. So certainly we'll see no issue with this tonight. Pay to play is alive and well in our town. Most people, most agencies, others are watching. So smile pretty as you defy logic. Most of your tax-paying constituents tonight will be watching. There's a process is suspect and something is very wrong.
Chairperson Barr, that concludes the public comment that was called in today.
Okay, thank you. Are we going to, will the public comment from last week that we weren't able to hear because of technical difficulties, will we be able to hear that tonight?
Yes, the intent, Chairman, is when you get to old business item 1, you will recall that last week we were able to have the staff report as far as the special land use given.
Okay.
The petitioner also made their presentation, and you were at the point of hearing the public comments that were received as part of the notice to public hearing.
Okay.
I believe there are 23 of those, and
Okay.
we will have Carol play those now if you're ready for them.
Do we want to proceed to item D under old business and just represent
Yes.
the special land use? Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. The public comment now is closed. We received 20 comments regarding this special land use tonight, and some other comments
Well,
beyond
that
that.
was simply public comment as part of public comment.
Okay. All right, moving on to old business. This is item D, special land use and site plan SB 200608. Mr. Twing?
Again, I would simply indicate that last week we did provide, staff provided an overview of what the request is. Basically, again, it's a renovation of an existing storefront, commercial storefront that used to be Joe's Army Navy. The petitioner is proposing a jewelry store. As part of that, part of their operation, they're proposing to have a pawnbrokers type operation based on the definition under the city's ordinance. In that regard, they are required to submit for special land use approval, and that's the Planning Commission's action. There were a couple of variances that were identified in that report in terms of the setbacks from residential at 150 feet is required. And then the second part was 1,000 feet from other uses. Given that I've already done the staff presentation last week and the petitioner did their presentation last week, I would simply suggest you go to the comments and listen to the public hearings.
Okay, thank you.
Whenever you're ready, Carol.
This is Charles Simchina. I'm calling in public comment for 30302 Woodward, the Joe's Army and Navy public hearing. I want to point out my objections to the proposed project. I usually only comment on citywide issues. I've never commented on an agenda item for a city commission meeting, planning commission meeting, or zoning board, but I think this has become not just a neighborhood issue for my neighborhood, but also a citywide issue, because I see this becoming a cancer that can spread up and down the Woodward corridor. This proposal should be denied. In particular, the special land use permit criteria cannot be met by any of the evidence presented by the petitioner. The Planning Commission cannot legitimately determine that all the criteria have been met when you consider the nature of this business, the proximity to a church, a playground, to residential properties, and the lack of any on-site parking. Even if the Planning Commission allowed this proposal to go to the zoning board for variances, the facts still remain the same. This is too close to a church, a playground, and a residential property. It's impossible for a proposal like this to be harmonious with the other properties nearby. It's impossible for it not to change the essential character of the neighborhood when the neighborhood church is close, the neighborhood playgrounds are close, and it's only 20 feet away from residential properties. To think that this would not be hazardous or disturbing based on the nature of the business, it would be an unconscionable finding of fact by this Planning Commission. It will not be any type of improvement. It will be a detriment to the neighborhood. It will use public facilities that need to be preserved for the neighborhood. The public facilities are the streets, where the residential streets where the patrons of the pawn shop will park. It will be detrimental. Studies do show that property values are affected by crime increase near pawn shops. If you are considering approval of this proposal, I would suggest adjourning it. There's something wrong with the process. For decades, public comment is always made the day of the meeting, right before a meeting. To have public comment one day before a planning commission meeting at 12 noon is going to disenfranchise people. They're not going to know to make this call at 12 o'clock like I did, because I read everything very carefully. And I don't know about the marijuana store next door, but I don't know how the petitioners can acquire a marijuana license and put a store there when the city commission has not even passed the ordinance yet that sets the criteria for obtaining a license. I'm not as worried about that as the fact that none of the legal criteria can possibly be met. Yeah, this is Charles.
Hi, this is Mick McGuire. I live at 4456 Arlington Street. I'm calling about the property at 32302 Woodward Avenue. It's been proposed that they're to install a pawn shop there, and I think pawn shop and a marijuana store. And also I understand that you want to make this such a large place that you're trying to buy property, or that they're going to condemn the property behind it, the residential property. I don't think this is going to bring any benefit to our neighborhood. Pawn shops have always been seen as something in a lower class area. I think this is just going to be something now that is going to deteriorate the neighborhood, deteriorate Woodward Avenue, which is our main thoroughfare through Royal Oak. That's one of the first things that people see coming into Royal Oak from the north side. I also understand that there's been some rumors that some of these pawn shops that have had some sort of FBI investigation going on at this time, and there's been some sort of investigation of city council people involved with these pawn shops. I don't know if this is any truth or if it has anything to do with this party, but there have been some rumors to that. I believe this, like say, this is will do nothing but deteriorate the neighborhood, and I don't see any reason that you should put something like that, especially if you're going to buy residence behind the place, and then that's going to be something other that the residents on that residential block be looking at these people's parking lot, and I don't believe this is going to be a good thing for the city at all. So I just wanted to mention that, and I hope you will turn this thing down, because like I said, I think all it's going to do is deteriorate the neighborhood. Thank you.
Is Eileen Gallagher, and this is agenda case number SP-020-06-08. The agenda case number is 20-06-11, and it's regarding the address 32302 Woodward Avenue. I believe this would be terrible for the neighborhood. We would attract the wrong kind of people. And I just don't think it fits in with our city, Royal Oak. Thank you.
My name is Mary Jo Dunha. I am the owner of Mattresses Beyond at 32470 Woodward in Royal Oak. We've been there 13 years. I'm very opposed to agenda item 2000608, which is at 32302 Woodward, which is going to be a jewelry and loan business. First of all, I do not feel that should be in this location. There's not going to be enough parking I myself have my own parking lot, and as it is, I have a problem for parking of the businesses south of me that customers come and park in my private parking lot and take my parking, so my customers don't have parking or employees. This is not enough space for parking. Also, this type of business in the Royal Oak area, I feel is unsuited for it. Possibly with a lone pawn type shop business going in there could bring undesirable people to the area. But again, parking is going to be a major problem. I have to pay for parking for my lot. I have to pay for the maintenance in my lot. And I am opposed to this type of business going in there. I'm sure the residents behind it are not going to be too in favor of it, since it will be parking in front of their home or on the side street. Also, the distance between the homes and the business for that type of business, I feel is too close. Again, I am opposed to this. My name is Mattresses and Beyond in Royal Oak, Michigan, 32470 Woodward Avenue. I did leave a letter also at the City Hall in the drop-off box. Thank you.
This is Royal Oak resident Diane Sabelden. I'm calling about an agenda item, the public hearing for a site at 32302 Woodward Avenue. I have many concerns, but we'll focus on three. The first is a lack of transparency in relation to parking. How many employees will Zeidman's have at this location, and who will need parking? This is not indicated. A letter from their attorney, Plunkett and Cooney, to nearby neighbors assures us that employees will not park in adjacent neighborhoods and, quote, separate accommodations will be made, unquote. What does that mean? If Zeidman's is able to accommodate all needed parking requirements without any adjustments, as it says in the site plan, then why is it that separate accommodations will need to be made? And why is it that for 6 months they called neighbors adjacent to the site asking them to sell their home so that their property could be turned into a parking lot? What assurances will be made that no attempt will be made now or in the future to purchase nearby property in order to demolish it for a parking lot? The second concern, Zeidman's previous involvement in political corruption. The MLive article of March 2011 stated, quote, Zeidman's Jewelry and Loan is back in the news and apparently back under the watch of the FBI. More than a year and a half after former Southfield City Councilman William Lattimore admitted accepting a bribe to help the store relocate, FBI agents and Southfield police raided the store this morning with guns drawn, unquote. This Southfield bribery allegation was not the first for Zeidman's. Their Detroit store was involved in a bribery scheme to gain political favor from a Detroit city councilwoman. This favor related to regulation of that store. If Zeidman's was extorted by a middleman who advised that they must pay to play and was an innocent victim in both cases, it appears that neither incident was reported to the police. What favors will Zeidman's be willing to pay for in Royal Oak? The Plunkett and Cooney endorsement letters from police departments in both Detroit and Southfield seem ironic. Previous involvement in fencing stolen property is the third thing I'm concerned about. Zeidman's was reported in the news to be one of 3 Detroit area pawn shops that were consistently used as fencing operations for a ring of thieves that operated in a multi-state area. Zeidman should be investigated by the Royal Oak Police Chief before being considered as a viable business for Royal Oak. In the case of any adult business coming into the city, it seems necessary. Has this been done or will it be done? The concerns I have stated point to the zoning ordinance, which requires that all new businesses will, quote, be an improvement in relation to property in the immediate vicinity and to the city as a whole. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Tom Kopsch. I'm calling in regards to 32302 Woodward. The site plan there. So, dear Planning Board, I'm a chiropractor located at 32268 Woodward Avenue, Royal Oak. The proposed businesses are located next door and one building north of my practice. I've been in practice since 1991, and I've always struggled with parking. Parking always has been, and will continue to be an issue. I firmly believe that the employees and patrons of the new businesses will take up the majority of public parking along the parking throughout the neighborhood, thus taking parking away from patients that are in pain that need to park along other patrons of the family-owned businesses that count on parking. It is disheartening that this proposal has even been considered. It will be detrimental to family-owned businesses, taxpayers that live in the well-established area of Royal Oak, along with the church and playground located so close. The business owner, Thomas LeBret, I found out is linked with corrupt and criminal acts. It is in my understanding that he has been charged and indicted in the past. We as business owners and families, residents, do not need a corrupt business owner bringing a pawn shop business to a well-established neighborhood. And I understand, and even the other business is going to be a cannabis shop. The clientele this business tracks are people in desperate and in need of cash. Again, this is a well-established family business area with families, churches, and playgrounds. Please keep in mind that the plan does not meet any of the required criteria for a special land use permit and zoning. It has the appearance of the attorneys and developers paying off political officials. The officials and those on the zoning board that are voting should not have any connection, partnership, or vested interest. Clearly, they do not, otherwise these meetings would not be happening. In closing, please consider the church, playground, professional businesses, and all the families this will affect. How would you vote if your business, family, home, or church was located next to a door or behind these proposed businesses? You've been elected to an important position to do right by the community. Take it seriously and make a difference, and say no. Thank you.
This is Richard Murphy. I'm calling to comment on case number SP 20-06-08. The parcel is 25-06-180-011. The address is 32302 Woodward Avenue. It is the proposed site for the Zeidman's jewelry and loan. As a citizen of Royal Oak, a taxpayer of Royal Oak, we've noticed some changes over the last few years with the way business is being done. I don't like the idea of this happening, and I'm opposed to it due to the fact that when you invite businesses like that in, mixed with the marijuana dispensary area, which is supposed to go on across the street from it, the former site of the Golden Basket restaurant, we're inviting more trouble into the city than what we need. As a taxpayer that has to fund police protection, fire protection, and other things. I don't know where this is going, but I don't like the idea of it. And I also don't like the idea that variances will have to be used in order to approve this due to the fact that the locality of churches, schools, and playgrounds in the area of those two buildings. So I'm opposed to it. I do not want it there. I think if the city wants to have dispensaries, which I know this is not, I think they need to concentrate them downtown where they can be better watched. However, it's bad enough with people traversing the city of Royal Oak to get wherever they're going. They fly down Normandy, they fly up and down Greenfield. They don't have a care in the world when it comes to the public safety. And inviting this kind of business in, I think, is going to be detrimental to property values and also to an area where it's safe for children to grow up and a nice place for families. So definitely opposed to it and would like to see it knocked off now. And that is my comment. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Wolf, 333 North Troy Street, Royal Oak, Spark 1511. I object to this agenda item F6, Special Land Use and Site Plan SP 200608 regarding Zeidman's Jewelry and Loan at 32302 Woodward Avenue for the following reasons. This is a working class neighborhood. The same neighborhood probably contains the same people the mayor has promised that he is going to employ and give in helping with city improvements. This is not helping this neighborhood. Once you put in a pawn shop, it's there forever. I promise you. You, the neighbors of this area, will have to be looking over your shoulder. There's not enough parking. There'll be parking on your block. This pawn shop will also likely be carrying handguns. These pawn shops are now allowed to do that. This pawn shop is also interested in opening up a marijuana business in the area too, as well. Is this what you really want in this neighborhood? Look at all the problems this pawn shop has had. It violates setbacks from residential properties. It has zero on-site parking. Pawn shop customers are expected to park in neighborhood side streets, violates setbacks on religious institutions, 235 feet from Emmanuel Bethel, 500 feet from Pioneer Park, where kids play. It has numerous write-ups with conflicts with the law. The mayor should recuse himself. I demand the mayor recuse himself, as he sits on both the commission and receives political support from the principals involved in this shop, in this pawn store. Again, this will also be a problem for the police. As you know, police will have to travel quite a distance to respond to any issues regarding the pawn shop. And as I said, this is not a good thing at all. People, you need to rise up in the area. People that live in this area need to rise up. This is just as bad as a broken dam at Midland. For your property, not just for your property values, but for your public safety as well. Please vote against this. This is not what Royal Oak needs. Royal Oak is not Pontiac. Royal Oak is not Detroit. Even those cities do not place their pawn shop businesses so close to residential areas. They're located in the downtown. If you want a pawn shop, put it downtown, next to the police department. That's where it belongs. Thank you.
My name is Madison Zeig, and I'm calling regarding the agenda subject number 6, the public hearing on special land use and site plan SP 20-06-08, address 32302 Woodward, for the establishment of a retail jewelry store. I live very near this jewelry store, and I vehemently oppose the building of this structure. I feel that it will decrease our property values immensely. It will also bring in an unwanted clientele to our very nice neighborhood. Previously, I had seen that Zeidman had other offices, and I know in 2011 there was an FBI investigation regarding some bribery that happened. Regardless, I don't think there should be any special consideration for them to be allowed to build this jewelry/pawn shop, especially so close to our beautiful neighborhoods and houses. Thank you very much for your time.
Saunders, 2130 Larome, Royal Oak. I am calling to express my concern about item number 6 on tomorrow night's agenda, public hearing, special land use and site plan for 32302 Woodward Avenue. My concerns are, I don't like Royal Oak, especially the Woodward corridor, becoming a place where pawn shops or something that is designated as far as adult use. I think those are things that we need to consider and keep at a minimum. As I'm looking at their site plan, it's also starting to creep into residential. At what point do we say no? So my concern is I do not think we need that type of business, especially with the history that that business has had in Southfield. Secondly, I don't want that kind of business. And then thirdly, I'm very concerned as we're starting to creep into residential area. I think there can be a much better use of that property. Thank you.
I'm making a public comment on case number SP
200608 at 32302 Woodward Avenue. My name is Albert Nesbitt. I live at 3616 Yorba Linda Boulevard in Royal Oak. I urge you to deny the special land use request. Why does the city even need zoning ordinances if the city continues to give businesses a variance to destroy our neighborhoods? This adult-oriented business should find a property that conforms to existing city zoning requirements. Please maintain our precious family quality of Royal Oak neighborhoods. Please reject this special land use request. Thank you for your attention.
This is Cynthia Slack. My home number is 248-549-3149. I'm calling in regard to the pawn shop that's it's wanting to go up on Woodward Avenue. The case number is 200611. We do not want it. It will attract people who will infiltrate and cause trouble in the neighborhood. We don't want it. All of that information has been shown to be possible through research. So please, no to the pawn shop. Thank you.
This is Caroline Sheldon. It's regarding case number 20-0611 for Zeidman's Jewelers. I just want to go on record that I am against these variances that are being requested. A 76% waiver of distance from a school, a library, a park, playground, and an 87% waiver of distance from residential zones for a jewelry store, I think is absurd. The business already has a history of unlawful activities causing business shutdowns. I think putting this in, taking out houses, not only does it cause additional runoff to sewer systems, which are already stressed out in the city, it would be destructive to the neighborhood and the community. The city is going to lose tax revenue because I'm sure that a tax on a parking lot is far less than on potentially 3 homes. The amount of additional traffic going through the subdivision is not the traffic that would be consistent with having homes, schools, churches, etc. around. This is not within the character defined by the surrounding area. There's no positive improvements to this property that I can foresee because it's going to have to be fortified for selling guns and jewelry. I'm sure there's going to have to be bulletproof glass, if glass at all. I believe that city services may go up just based on this type of business being around. The pawn shop is not consistent with the intent and purposes of the zoning chapter in this neighborhood setting, and against providing any of the zoning waivers for this item number. And I'm totally against the Zeidman going into this property from the reasons stated. Thank you.
My name is Paige Harrison. I'm calling on behalf of the planning meeting agenda case number SP0200608, zoning meeting agenda case number 200611 for address 32302 Woodward Avenue. I'd like to start off with that we are a growing family who came to Royal Oak for the young family atmosphere, the schools, parks, and long-time, church community that has been established in Royal Oak. Overall, we came here because it was a safe community. I do not believe that we should waive the rights of these locations that demand adult-themed businesses to be further distanced to add a pawn shop and take down homes in our neighborhood to add a parking lot. This will destroy the people who have invested our money into the city to lose property value. We're also concerned about increasing crime-related activity that comes with pawn shops. Police have a hard time managing current road racing conditions on Woodward, and we have lived here for 7 years now. Every summer, the cars on our street behind this location, which is Cooper Avenue, are broken into. Items stolen, and adding a pawn shop will only encourage further theft and diminish family safety and security. Our elderly, women, and families with young children in this neighborhood will not feel comfortable walking down the street 3 blocks to our neighborhood park at any time with what could become the alley behind the pawn shop and the marijuana store if you pass all of these variances. So we wanted to call and let you know, and we thank you for your time. Goodbye.
This is Mark calling from the city of Royal Oak, calling about planning committee. Agenda item F6, new business. That's the pawn shop in the other place, the marijuana dispensary that are planning to go onto Woodward Avenue. There's a little bit of concern. Obviously, the concern is parking. The concern is close to a church it is, how close to a park it is. The concern is the people that are bringing to the neighborhood. The fact it's on a Woodward Avenue bus route. The fact that the dispensary or the pawn shop have been raided in the past. The pawn shop has in Southfield. So I find it interesting that Royal Oak is willing to bring a business into its city that has such controversy behind it. But then again, I understand the mayor and Zeidman are working together. Zeidman's a contributor to the mayor, and that's not surprising based on the way the mayor works. You know, the mayor is based on emotion. Didn't like what Kim Gibbs did. That's a different story. But writes a piece about her, a hit piece on her. You know, she can't have opinions. We have opinions about the mayor that aren't as positive as he might think they are. So if the mayor's willing to allow Royal Oak to have this, I suggest that the mayor put this in his part of Royal Oak, because the Woodward corridor is supposed to be a nice, clean, well-maintained corridor that Royal Oak and Birmingham, Bloomfield Township, all the way down to Ferndale, people are supposed to drive through and feel safe, and it's supposed to be clean, like I said. I just don't think this is going to work out for Royal Oak very positively. But, you know, since the mayor probably already made his decision, since, you know, he's unilateral in this, you'll see how it works. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be a nightmare for your city. And don't expect people to be happy who live in that area. And then you better strip up a millage and expect that that's going to be, you're going to need police and fire. Most likely more police in that area. So maybe they won't be able to patrol downtown as often. Maybe they won't be able to patrol the southeast section, but probably up in the northwest section. So prove me wrong. This is just common sense, but then again, prove me wrong that this will work. And obviously, it's going to happen no matter what, because we know the way politics works these days. Very disappointed to read this, to see this, and best of luck. You know, this is something that the mayor can hang his hat on when it doesn't work. He'll be known for this. This will be Fournier's folly, just like Seward's folly. But actually, Seward's folly worked. Fournier is not going to work. So good luck. Again, this is Mark. Live on Robinwood, right in the neighborhood. And I definitely don't plan on living in Robinwood very much longer. Thank you. Bye-bye.
This is Michael Flack. I live at 4134 South Fulton Place, Royal Oak. I've been a member of this community since 1982 and lived in this area my whole life. I understand that you're considering a pawn shop where the old Joe's Army Navy store was located on Woodward. And I oppose that property being used for that purpose. I feel that it will attract people from outside of the area of Royal Oak who would very possibly be undesirable. And that's pretty much all I have to say on the matter. Thank you very much. Bye.
My name is Mary Beth Harrison. I'm a citizen of Royal Oak. I am calling in reference to a planning S as in Sam, P as in Peter, 20-0608. The address is 32302 Woodward. And it's in reference to site planning for a potential pawn shop at this location. I have some objections to this from the planning perspective. Number one, the signage is it's ridiculous looking. It's flashy. It is not tasteful, and it looks top heavy. The lighting that they claim they're going to have is going to be very, very bright. I don't know about you, but I'm sure not many people that live in your area will want that kind of wattage coming through their windows. It's almost going to be like they're living around a prison. It's ridiculous. The on-site parking is going to be terrible. There's little to none of it. Number one, I don't know where all the employees are going to park. How many employees will there be anyway? In the other two stores, there's 42 of them. So I have no idea how many, but even if you had 10 working there a day, where are they all going to park? And because of this parking situation, they're going to be parking in, people are going to be parking in the neighborhoods. They're going to be blocking driveways. They will park in your driveway. I can guarantee you that. And I don't want to have to deal with that kind of baloney. The curbs and abutments, where exactly are they going to be placed? What are they going to look like? There's no artist renderings of that. You know, pawn shops are also known to bring crime to areas and devalue properties. So really you're making the residents who are paying taxes the sacrificial lamb for the mayor and the commissioners because they overspent on the downtown city properties, building them. So you're jeopardizing our safety and devaluating our properties because of your stupidity. Really all you're trying to do here in the case of a pawn shop is you're trying to put lipstick on a pig. And it is not anything that any of us want to live around. And I talked to some of the city officials and I asked one of them, somebody who wrote a letter, and I said, would you want to live behind it? And he told me no. So if the city feels like that, then why shouldn't I feel any different? There's a 6-letter word that strikes fear in the heart of all politicians. It's called recall. Thank you.
My name is Mary Von Koss. I'm calling regarding the planning meeting agenda case number SP 0200608 and the zoning meeting agenda case number 200611. The address is 32302 Woodward Avenue. I object to any variance in that property. The variance requested violates the setback from residential properties, which would be 150 feet, and this would only be a 20-foot setback. The site also has essentially no on-site parking, which means customers would be parking in the neighborhood, and it violates the setbacks for religious institutions and parks, which is 1,000 feet. Emmanuel Bethel Church is only 235 feet from there, and 500 feet away is the Pioneer Park. The pawn shop also raises the rate of crime in areas where pawnable property is stolen, and it increases the increased crime leads to a decrease in property values and a need for more police monitoring. In addition, the owner has also had run-ins with the law, and I just do not think that it would be safe for our area. I would request that you not approve this request. It's not good for our city, and it would be a very sad legacy that our mayor would leave if this is passed. Thank you.
My name is Mindy Groves, that's Grohs, and I'm calling regarding the special land use and site plan SP 20-06-08 to establish the retail jewelry store and pawnbroker or pawn shop at the old Joe's Army location. And I want to strongly state that I oppose that establishment going into this neighborhood.
I live on Elmwood with 3 kids who ride their bike and walk the neighborhood. So my concern is bringing in what is described as an adult-oriented pawn shop or business coming into the neighborhood would possibly bring in some traffic that might be unwanted in a family-friendly neighborhood. There's also an elementary school straight down the street from that location, and traffic cutting through extra people in the neighborhood that might be possibly with goods that they just need to sell or get quick cash or loans probably isn't in our best interest in this neighborhood. So if you can please note that I oppose it, my family opposes it, neighbors around us oppose it, that we do not want this in our neighborhood. And I appreciate any feedback that you have. If you want to give me a call back, my phone number is 248-224-8078. Thank you.
Yes, my name is James Sheldon. I'm calling regarding item 10, case number 20-06-11, Zeidman's Jewelry. Overall, this process is disrespectful to tax-paying citizens, not giving a 30-day review process between comments and meetings and fast-tracking to only 2 days. There's no hardship necessary for these variances, for there are numerous other properties available throughout the area that would meet the normal guidelines, including parking like downtown. The old art van would at least provide adequate parking without the destruction of neighborhood housing. The request of huge variances, percentage-wise, 70% waiver of distance from a school, library, park, playground, licensed daycare, or religious institution, and an 87% waiver of distance from a residential zone to permit a jewelry store with a pawnbroker's license, which is defined as an adult-orientated business at 32302 Woodward Avenue. This is unacceptable. This business that already has a history of unlawful activities causing business shutdown. This would be destructive to the neighborhood community. This establishment is not harmonious to nor in accordance with the general objectives or any specific objects of the master plan neighborhood with houses, schools, and churches. It is not the character defined by the surrounding area. The business will be hazardous or disturbing to the existing area with possible destruction of numerous houses, flat parking lots leading to additional runoff, and a sewer system already overstressed. There's no positive improvement of the property, for it will need to be fortified for bulletproofing for the sale of guns and jewelry. The city will lose tax revenue for parking lots, will not have the same tax basis as homes. A pawn shop is not consistent with the intent and purposes of the zoning chapter in a neighborhood setting. Thus, I am against providing any of the zoning waivers. Thank you.
Comment, case number ST 20-06-08 32302 Woodward. My name is Linda Nesbitt. I live at 3616 Yorba Linda Boulevard, Royal Oak. I request that you vote to deny this special land use request. We don't need to rezone our neighborhood to accommodate an adult-oriented business. It should locate to an area already zoned for its use. Please keep the family quality of our Royal Oak neighborhood and reject this special land use request. Thank you.
My name is Patty Murphy. I am a Royal Oak citizen. I'm calling in regards to 25-06-180-011 in regards to the pawn shop, Zeidman's, and into regards to the Golden Basket, the pot shop. I'm not sure how these were approved because you have Upton Elementary not even a half mile away. This is not good for the community and should not be allowed to happen. Please reconsider so people can not worry about the children at the elementary school or any other activity that could happen. Thank you for your consideration. If you would like to call me, I'm at 248-797-2152. Thank you.
that concludes the public comment from June 9th, the original date of the public hearing.
Carol, one question. I was tracking them, and the original comments, I listened to all 23 over the last few days, and there was one more comment from a Barry Saunders. I don't know if we heard him, that he would have been person number 23.
Let me look.
Could you see if you have a record of that? Because he should be heard.
I agree.
He was the last one.
Okay. Maybe I had something. Yes, here it is. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks, Carol.
Saunders, 2130 Larome, Royal Oak.
Okay, I'm sorry that it comes up with the same name. Probably because their account is in the same name.
When I was presented to me through the email, it just said caller 23. It didn't have a name attached to it.
I believe Doug told me that he did not put them in order of the way they came in. I was putting them in the order that I received the timestamp. I was playing them. So let me count them. I do see 23, and I don't. And I played them right in order. It could be possible I missed one. It's not always the easiest system to keep track of. You want to?
Well, how about if we do this? I don't have his address. I'm not even sure he gave his address. His name is Barry Saunders, and he was opposed to the project for a variety of reasons. He did mention he was worried about the establishment, FBI investigation, and potential raids on the Southfield establishment. Again, his name is Barry Saunders.
So yes, I see that name, but that was Edie's comment. Edie is Barry's wife. I don't see a second one with that name. Sometimes when they come in, a name doesn't appear, just a phone number does.
Okay.
And the voicemail system just gives a random code number to it. That would mean very little. If you want to proceed with the meeting, and I'll go through and listen to all of them that don't have names associated with them and see if I can find it that way.
Carol? Carol?
Yes.
Are you aware I could email it to you and see if you can play it from the email?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Let me see if I can email you comment 23.
Okay, let's try that. Thanks, Tim.
Okay, I sent it, Carol.
Yep, and I keep refreshing and do not have it just yet.
Okay.
There it is. Okay.
This is Barry Saunders, 2130 Larome, Royal Oak. I'm calling in regard to the property at 32302 Woodward for their special use. I don't think it's a good idea to alter the plan so that we can have a business that was investigated by the FBI for bribery in Southfield. Not only that, it doesn't meet any of the standards for the type of business. Thank you.
That concludes the public comment then, I believe? Yeah. Okay, thanks, Carol. Okay, so that's the public comment from last week that we were unable to hear, which forced us to postpone or adjourn the meeting until tonight. We've had the presentation from the petitioners as well as the planning director, Mr. Twing. Mr. Twing, is there anything that you need to add before we maybe turn it over to the commissioners for any questions?
No, I went through the report last week. I would just indicate your actions are on the special land use. We did not get into the site plan review. So your first discussion is the special land use. And I would simply suggest you follow your normal protocol from here, which is either the planning commission having questions of myself and or the petitioner.
Okay, I just want to note before I'm going to go to Ms. Douglas, but it should be noted that we've had 54 written comments opposing this. We had 23 from calls from last week opposing this, and we just had 20 today, all in opposition. So that's a total of 97 opposed. Ms. Douglas?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Typically, we do, after a public hearing, allow the petitioner to answer questions that may have arisen or address issues that may have been spoken. I think that would be very appropriate at this time. And I would also like to hear from the city attorney on the noticing procedures that we followed, given COVID-19 and sort of the changes in how public bodies can conduct public hearings and notice people. I'd like to hear from him after we hear from the petitioner, if we may. Thank you.
Yes, very good point. So why don't we go ahead and turn it over to the petitioner. Mr. Collin or Mr. Krieger, would you care to comment on the any of the public comments?
Yes, I would. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I am here with Mr. Krieger of Krieger Plat Architects and also with Brad Lebret, Vice President of Zeidman's. First of all, we want to thank you for this continuation of the meeting from last week. We're hopeful that if we are approved, we'll be able to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals in a timely manner on July 9th. I do want to say that there were a number of issues brought up in the comments. I do want to state for the record, for the chairperson, that included in the, there were emails or letters that were in support that have been submitted. We also had a petition with 42 signatures, including 12 business owners on Woodward nearby the proposed location, as well as residents who were in support of Zeidman's. So I know there were a number of issues. I'm only going to touch on a couple because I'm making the assumption that they'll be the ones you'll want us to comment on, because there were some themes and concerns. And I do want to say that despite the fact my normal protocol with a client is to take the exact list that is used by the city for notice and to have a meeting. We were unable to do that because of the current restrictions that we're under with the governor's order, but we did send a letter in late May to all persons who received notice offering to speak, also to advise them of exactly what we were doing. There was full transparency. So I thought it was important that you know that. And I think that certainly gave rise to maybe the number of phone calls and emails that you received, because we were being very transparent about what Zeidman's wants to do at the location. So let me first say that the focus of tonight is on the special land use and the criteria. We submitted to you our support in my letter of May 27th, as well as the information that I presented to you at the prior meeting, and as well as the comments we'll have tonight. And we believe we meet and exceed each and every criteria. I know there's talk of, there was discussion among many of the calls about variances. Obviously, that is a separate issue to be dealt with by a separate body, your zoning board of appeals. Any property owner in the city of Royal Oak has the opportunity and in fact the right to make an application for a zoning variance. Again, that will be an issue decided by the zoning board of appeals if we are approved for special land use and site plan this evening. That being said, I want to deal in facts, not in fiction, not in fear. There were a lot of concerns, but there wasn't a lot of facts that were discussed earlier this evening. So first, let's talk about parking. Parking will be exactly as it is today. Joe's Army Navy was retail. Zeidman's is a jewelry store with the loan option. That is also retail. The communication we received is that we do not need a parking variance of any kind because it is the same use. And also because in 1966, there was a parking variance granted. It was then Berry Drugs for retail use. So as far as parking goes, from our perspective as a legal matter, that has already been decided by the city. But as a practical matter, there would have been 17 parking spaces required. There are 15 adjacent to the site. We also will offer, as we had, I believe I stated last time, and if I didn't, I'm stating now, as a condition of your special land use, we will agree that all employees will park not in the public spaces, not in the neighborhood. We will find adequate parking for them. Most of the employees stay all day at their normal business hours, 9 to 5:30. So that's not a problem. And we don't believe it'll be a problem. And we will make that a condition of the special land use and urge you to do so. I would also point out that in terms of parking, since the business closes at 5:30 and is not open on Sunday, we will actually be using those parking spaces less than have been used by Joe's Army Navy and its predecessors. So in one way, there'll be more parking, especially available for patrons of the other businesses. And we have talked to the other businesses. Many of them, except the two you heard from, welcome a viable, going, well-known business that will also bring, they believe, other customers to the area. We've also talked about redoing the parking lot on the right-of-way, which was a plan actually that was floated a couple years ago to make further improvement to that area. The second thing I want to talk about is property values. That is something that is thrown around, quite frankly, by opponents of almost every project I have ever been involved in Royal Oak, both on your side of the table and as an advocate on behalf of property and business owners. The fact is that the presence of Zeidman's is not going to diminish anyone's property values. What hurts property values is the situation we have right now. As I stated last week, between Normandy and 14 Mile, on Woodward, there are 12 vacant storefronts and businesses, and Art Vans, of course, is in bankruptcy. We're hopeful somebody will buy that location and use it, but that is uncertain. And we don't know what the fallout will be from COVID with respect to businesses. We're hopeful that they will all remain. But the point is that affects property values. Having a going concern with an updated building, which is consistent with the master plan, which seeks to have updated buildings on Woodward, we think is very important. And just, I could go into a lot of stories about property values, but I'll give you just one quick one. Some of you may remember when I was involved with Imagine Theater and placing the theater, there was all kinds of concern about all kinds of terrible things that would befall the neighborhood to the immediate east and to the north. None. Not one of the things that were predicted diminution of property values, parking problems, crime. None of those things happen. And in fact, that neighborhood to the east and north is one of the finest neighborhoods we have in Royal Oak, and has had numerous investments in new residences and updated residences. We have a fine neighborhood adjacent that I'm very familiar with, adjacent to this location. It will remain a fine neighborhood. There will not be any diminution in property values. It's a highly speculative statement, and quite frankly, there's no evidence to support it. Again, the same thing with this issue of safety and crime. The building is a very secure building, as most jewelry stores are, for obvious reasons, with cameras on the inside and the outside, as well as a safe, as well as all the other high-tech security that goes along today. It will be one of the safest buildings in Royal Oak to be in or to visit. Some of the issues that were brought up in some of the comments were not about Zeidman's. Zeidman's does not, as we stated before and have in the plan of operation presented to you, we only make loans against very limited items, jewelry, watches, necklaces, luxury type items, not televisions, lawnmowers, and all types of other things that unfortunately sometimes are the target of criminals. So those are absolutely not matters that we would be involved in. And I do bring attention to the fact that we did attach letters from the two communities that Zeidman's does business in, the chief of police in the city of Southfield and the lieutenant who works in the district that Zeidman is located in the city of Detroit, complimentary of their business operations. And again, that comes from police. I do not believe any police officer or official would put their name on a letter to another community endorsing is probably too strong a word, but indicating this is a business that they've worked with and has been a credit to the community. They would not do that if they did not believe it and have firsthand experience. The one other issue, two other issues I want to touch on is there was one comment about lighting. We follow the lighting for the per ordinance. We'll certainly work with anyone. We think that particular area is very underlighted. So there are lights that we have, and they will be forced down and follow the other rules in terms of site plan requirements. Two last things. There were some very unfortunate comments, I believe, made about customers of Zeidman's. As I stated before, the customers of Zeidman's are you and I. They are Royal Oakers. They are from Berkeley, Birmingham, Troy, Sterling Heights. Every zip code within reach of this location has customers from Zeidman's. They are not undesirable people. In fact, Zeidman's values each and every one of its customers, no matter where they come from. Again, I think some of those comments were regrettable, and I know you will not give them weight, but we felt that I needed to make a statement on behalf of the customers of Zeidman's that we have to date and in the future. Finally, I do want to address the issue that was brought up about an incident that happened several years ago in the city of Southfield, and quite frankly, was not accurate in its depiction. And I'll be very straightforward with you. First, Zeidman's, that incident had nothing to do with the operations of the business. They were moving locations in Southfield, had never done it before, were recommended to use some people who could assist them with that endeavor before the Southfield City Council. As it turned out, and it's been well documented, those people went in the wrong direction, and several of them are in jail under federal prosecution. I think it's important to note for the record, no one at Zeidman's, owner or employee, was ever a target, nor were they ever charged with any crime, not even jaywalking. Second, there was never any suspension or revocation of either license. And I think you know that whenever a situation like that develops, state authorities and local authorities also look into the matter. Again, no revocation or suspension. This has been a business that has operated uninterrupted for 97 years. You don't get to do business for 97 years if you don't follow the rules. It was an unfortunate incident, one that Zeidman's regrets. Unfortunately, it's on Google, and so whenever it comes up, they have to address it. And last and most importantly, despite all the activity that had gone on in that situation, the City Council in Southfield unanimously approved the change of location. I think that speaks volumes. So I hope we can put that to bed. I think there were, again, some unfortunate things that were said about Mr. LeBret and about Zeidman's by some. Again, I hope you will not give that weight. Instead, rely upon what I have told you and what was reported also in newspapers. And last but not least, we look forward to the opportunity of approval to go to the zoning board and to make application, and for there to be a full investigation that would be done by the Royal Oak Police Department. We are highly confident that, as we have in Southfield and in Detroit, would be able to pass muster with the Royal Oak ordinance. And I do want to say in closing, again, Royal Oak has a special ordinance. There's a reason for that. I helped pass it. I believe that ordinance will be held, any company coming in for a pawn shop license will be held to a high degree of accountability, and certainly will be under scrutiny from neighbors and others. So I believe that once this business is established, as it has been in Southfield and Detroit, will be a credit to the community and will be a jewelry store with, again, the loan option that is permitted in the district and that we can all be proud of. So I thank you for your indulgence, both a week ago and today, and we stand ready to answer any questions you may have regarding the special land use or the site plan.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Okay, back to the commission. Any questions for the petitioner? Ms. Beakey. You need to unmute. Unmute.
I know.
Right, there you go.
It wasn't working. I was aware of that. Let's see. I have two questions. Trying to clarify what I'm hearing both in your presentation as well as the recorded information. People mentioned the idea, or was perhaps in that letter you had sent to them, this issue of potentially buying houses to tear down to increase parking. So I'd like to address that. That's one question. The other question I have is, if you were not able to meet with the neighborhood people and other businesses nearby in order to have a meeting like you said you normally do, how did you go about getting the signatures and support? If you couldn't have a meeting with those people, how did you get signatures from other people, given the situation in the COVID-19?
Well, first, let me answer the first question. As you may know, there is an ordinance in Royal Oak that does allow you to purchase a property subject to approval. I believe it's with the City Commission, one house in off of Woodward primarily. That particular issue, we were surprised to learn about. We did some investigation. We were not involved in any of those offers. The original broker with Joe's Army Navy thought that there were other uses than retail, such as restaurant or perhaps some other uses that would require parking if there was a change in use, and realized could probably only do it if he got additional parking. So that broker, for the owner of Joe's Army Navy, went to some of the residents and asked them if they were willing to sell. I can unequivocally state, and I have that from the ownership, they have no interest, no plans, will not make any offers to residents to buy their homes to turn it into parking lots. It's not necessary. They were not part of that. Somehow that got kind of garbled up. But I think that you can understand a broker. Brokers go out and do a lot of things on behalf of their clients. That was not our broker. We were not involved, and I'll state that for the record. The second thing is, unfortunately, you pointed out, Commissioner, that yes, we were not able to have a meeting. However, we did go discuss. We sent the letter. I did get some calls. I felt that was that or emails. I offered either way to engage people. So we made that effort. Representatives of Zeidman's did go to individual owners to talk to them at the businesses. And I think I might have mentioned to you that the remainder of those signatures were gathered outside in front of the Myers store at Woodward Corners, where they engaged individuals one-on-one and were able to talk with them. And show them the plans also. They had a little board that they could show them. So that's how we were able to get those signatures of support and evidence of support from the business owners and community members.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Any other questions for the petitioner? Any questions for Mr. Twing? Ms. Douglas?
I did want to hear from the city attorney on the noticing discussion.
Yep, we can move on to that. Mr. Liss?
I want to make sure that I understand the commissioner's request about, you have a question about the procedures that the city used to take in public comment.
Yes, the public comment was sought on the day before the original planning commission meeting. Was that proper? I know the city commission, for example, people comment on that same day. I know that with COVID-19, we've got governor's executive orders that affect how we notice public meetings, but obviously they allow us to conduct our public business. So please describe the process that you went through and how it squares with both proper procedure and COVID procedures.
Okay. The Governor Whitmer's executive order 2020-75 continued and laid out the procedures for public bodies to use, specifically allowing the meetings to be performed or carried electronically, and also to allow for public comment. The order does not specify what the procedure should be to receive public comment. It leaves it up to the public body to decide. So my understanding is that the Plan Commission adopted, the Plan Department adopted rules to accept the public comment, and that the public comment portion for the Plan Commission was conducted in a substantially similar way that it was done for the City Commission itself.
So, but the public hearing comments for this item were collected on the day before the planning commission meeting rather than on the day of the planning commission meeting. How did we determine that would be okay?
Well, from the law department standpoint, having them the day before is fine. The decision to take the comments the day before would have been a decision that Mr. Twing's department made. So I don't know the reasoning for it, but perhaps Mr. Twing can address it, but I don't see any problem with it. It both complies with the Open Meetings Act under the Executive Order 2020-75, which allows for public comments to be taken, but does not state that they have to be on the day of.
And it was noticed in the proper traditional ways that we do for all of our public hearings.
Yes, the public within 300 feet, property owners are 300 feet were notified. The notices went up on the city's website, romi.gov, and it was published according to the Open Meetings Act in the paper of record.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Liss. Any other commissioners have questions about this application from the petitioner or Mr. Twing? Ms. Beakey?
I always have at least one more. I was just wondering, what is the urgency in terms of the timeline? again, we would normally roll this to another month and just like, what is pressing this as far as the rush? And other than the zoning meeting that's coming up, which we already heard.
Mr. Krieger or Mr. Cowan, can you address that question?
Well, I wouldn't characterize making application to the city as being a rush. There's a normal process that we would follow, and it would be, we were told by the planning department that our first step would be to go to the planning. We have to go to the planning commission because the special land use and the site plan would need to be approved. In essence, you're granting permission to us to then go to zoning. We can't do it the other way. And then if we were to complete and be approved by zoning, then we would go to make application for a pawnbroking license. There would be an investigation by the city police department. All that information would be presented to the city commission. So there's a 3-step process here, and we're following the process. And like any other business, we'd like to, the property's been purchased. There would be a number of things, if we are approved, that we would have to go through to try and get things underway with contractors and architects and folks like that. So we anticipated that we would have a normal process, which would be, in this instance, the June meeting here. We had hoped to actually do it back to back, as you may recall, but we could not go to the zoning board. We were going to get it done all in 1 week. So we are a little bit behind schedule. We would like to move forward with your indulgence so that we could go to the zoning board on July 9th, and then hopefully proceed with the pawn shop license application.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan.
Yes.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Any other comments? Is there a motion? And these, Mr. Twing, these would be 2 separate motions, correct?
Yeah, so your first motion would be on the land use
Okay.
permit. You'd also have to grant permission under that for them to seek the waivers. Again, those were related to the 1,000-foot setback as well as the 150-foot setback from residential. That would be your first action, would be a determination that the proposed use and the plan of operation are appropriate for this site.
And we would need to follow the recommendations under the basis of determination on page 4.
They start on page 4 and continue on to page 5 in terms of the basis for your determinations.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Douglas.
Madam Chair, I would like to move approval of the special land use, granting the applicant permission to seek variances from the zoning board. And I would like to speak to my motion after it's seconded.
Okay, so there's a motion to move this forward as approval for special land use with the variance granted. Is there support? Mayor supports. Okay, Ms. Douglas.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The question was raised, are we in a rush here? And in fact, the applicant expects a timely resolution of their application, and it was delayed last week because of the technical difficulties we had with public comment recordings. And that's why we're meeting this week, because it was our bad. We owed them that in order to be able to process their application in a timely fashion, and to be sure that we heard from all of the people who wanted to speak on this. And I thank the city staff also, Ms. Schwanger particularly, for arranging the recordings and making sure they were played and were very clearly heard tonight. And I also want to thank the many people, I would say 97 people, although that's the gross number. I think the net is a little lower than that, but thank them for taking the time to comment on this application. I want to say that a mistake of fact repeated many times doesn't make it true. We heard from many applicants today that this development is tied to a marijuana related business next door. And in fact, we even heard one speaker point out correctly that the city currently prohibits marijuana businesses. I expect we will allow them in our city, but where they will wind up, how they will meet the licensing requirements and the zoning requirements is an open question. So to say that there's going to be a marijuana business next door to this store is not at all accurate. People also question the zoning, the choice of zoning. In fact, our zoning ordinance says that adult-oriented businesses must be in a general business zoning, and a majority of our general business zoning is on Woodward Avenue. So that's where pretty much adult-oriented businesses are going to wind up. This is a jewelry store. I mean, people keep calling it a pawn shop. It's a jewelry store. We've seen interiors of their other establishments. They're very nicely designed. This is a business that sells and buys jewelry, watches, and precious metals. And then they also happen to make loans with jewelry as collateral, which is really the only reason they even had to get our permission. Other than that, they're a retail business operating in an appropriately zoned building. I will point out that their customers will be the kind of people who have jewelry valuable enough to borrow against. So the suggestion that this will attract riffraff, I think, is not accurate. I will also point out that if they change their business model and try to sell anything else other than jewelry and precious metals like lawnmowers or guns, they will be violating this special land use that we are contemplating here tonight. So we expect that they will continue to operate as a jewelry. We've also heard tonight that the previous business wasn't required to provide parking, and that variance carries over to any new occupant. So those are sort of the conditions, and I'm going to go through the basis of determination here to say why I support this special land use. It says the use will be harmonious and in accordance with the general objectives or any specific objectives of the master plan. The master plan clearly designates this area for retail establishments such as this one. Will it be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be harmonious and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity and will not change the essential character of the area? I think if it changes the essential character, it will be to improve it. We've heard how many vacancies there are in this stretch of Woodward Avenue. The site plan, which we will consider next, shows a very attractive, upgraded retail site. Number 3, will not be hazardous or disturbing to existing uses or uses reasonably anticipated in the future. Again, it's a retail store, actually in many ways not different from Joe's Army Navy. So there's no reason to think that it will be contradictory to anything else we might anticipate there. Will be an improvement in relation to property in the immediate vicinity and to the city as a whole. Again, I speak to the development, the design that they propose, the fact that we're bringing in a store that sells expensive goods. I think that's an improvement. Will be served adequately by essential public services and facilities, or that the persons responsible for the establishment of the proposed use will provide adequately for any such service or facility. I would say that parking is probably the facility that comes into play here. I don't see this as a facility requiring the police supervision or oversight that others have suggested. And again, they've addressed the parking issue, and in fact, they are not required to provide any parking other than what is there in the right of way. Will not create excessive additional public costs and will not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the city. I searched extensively to find out if there are data that say that pawn shops diminish residential values, and I found no such proof, no studies, no academic work on the subject. So I do not believe this will be detrimental to the economic welfare of the city or this neighborhood. And number 7 will be consistent with the intent and purposes of this chapter, zoning ordinance, and comply with all applicable provisions and standards which are established for said use by this chapter and other applicable codes. As I said earlier, this business strip is zoned general business, and their function is classified as an adult business, so they are properly proposing that use in an area that is zoned accordingly. As I said earlier, repeating a mistake 50 times doesn't make it true. I think that this issue has become amplified through social media without the facts. As public officials, we have an obligation to the applicants and to the democratic process in the city to wade through the irrelevant stuff and make our decisions based upon the legal framework that has been created and the facts in front of us. That's what state law, our charter, and the ordinances we have approved mandate, and I believe this decision is consistent with all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Douglas. Well presented, well said. I appreciate that. Mayor.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Douglas on a lot of those same regards. And, you know, I appreciate everybody who took the time to call in tonight. Certainly, whenever there's a change in a neighborhood or just outside your neighborhood, being engaged and understanding what's going on is the best way to manage ourselves. You know, it takes an entire community, not just the city commission, but everybody that works here at the city and of course all of our neighbors. I think though there is some misinformation, a pattern of misinformation that I was able to understand during the public comment. And I really feel badly for some people that may have had some bad information, because this really distracts and makes the job harder to have an honest conversation about what's going on. And the honest conversation we're going to have surrounding the facts. We're not going to talk about, you know, this thing being anything other than a jewelry store. It is a jewelry store, like Commissioner Douglas properly said. This is what their plan of operation. They're not going to be bringing in TVs and lawnmowers and have, you know, other items that are going in and out. We know exactly what it is. You know, frankly speaking, I don't see criminals filling out a loan application to bring in jewelry they just stole that wasn't theirs. And, you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me in that regard. You know, I guess for me as well, frankly, I was a little upset with a couple of the folks that commented publicly that made, I'll be completely blunt here, covert racist statements about bus routes and people coming in from Detroit and people coming in from Pontiac and, you know, these undesirable people and the wrong kind of people. I mean, this is absolutely absurd, unnecessary, and uncalled for in our community. We're a loving, tolerant community. And I think we saw these sort of remarks when Imagine came in and we were worried about, you know, who comes to watch movies? You know, people from Detroit. This is unconscionable and shouldn't even be, and I'm just shocked that it's even, you know, part of the public dialogue that we saw here tonight. But based on some of the way the information was spread and based on some of the names I recognized in public comment, sadly, I'm not completely surprised. So, you know, we also have to look at, you know, some of the other reasonable tests along Woodward. There are other jewelry stores and secondhand stores for the most part, or for as well on Woodward that broker in new and used goods, and they buy goods from people. You can go to their websites. You can see one is less than a mile away, just north of this location. And, you know, we don't have any criminal activity to report there. There are no issues. These are business owners, entrepreneurs running good businesses. They have been for a long time. And so, you know, the fear that, you know, some high-end, you know, ability to give and grant a loan, short-term loan to help another business grow or to help somebody through a tough financial situation that they may be going through is going to lead to crime. It's just in direct conflict with what we see. I mean, if this is the logic, we should shut down every secondhand shop in all of Royal Oak. You know, from the antique shops to the antiques market at the farmer's market to everything along Woodward. I mean, these arguments don't hold up, and it shouldn't distract us from what's in front of us as a planning commission. The real criteria that we have to evaluate and in the right context that we have to evaluate, and listening to the right public comments that, you know, generate a feeling about what the concerns are and really evaluate those concerns against the facts and what we're here to do. So, For me, my vote and my judgment is fully going to be to look at the facts as they are, to look at our responsibility as a board, and to discount and wash away some of the political attacks and rhetoric that we heard, unfortunately, at public comment, and really focus on the concerns of genuine people calling in that have a concern, and rightfully so. They're not as informed about what might be happening because of the misinformation they may have received. So for me, that's going to be my process here as we discuss this topic.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Klooster.
Yes, so I cannot support the motion this evening. I hear what Commissioner Douglas and the mayor is saying, and if this were a simple site plan for a retail component, I would agree with you wholeheartedly that it satisfies those criteria. What we're discussing right now is specifically the special land use portion of this, which is triggered by the adult-oriented business. And one of the few criteria we have for adult-oriented businesses is their proximity guidelines, and the proximity guidelines have been violated in multiple instances in this particular location. I don't think that the criteria for special land use have been met to justify those violations of that criteria. And simply for those multiple violations of that criteria, I can't support the motion this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Klooster. Mr. Gantina?
So I agree with several things that all the previous commissioners stated. First and foremost, I was definitely disappointed as well to hear some of the terminology that was used in some of the public comment. I agree with Mayor Fournier and the fact that whether they realized it or not, many overt racial terms were used, and I think, especially considering what is happening right now today, for people to use that sort of language in expressing how they feel about this, I found to be very, very unfortunate. But it doesn't take away from the fact that obviously there's a lot of concerned citizens regarding this proposal, many of which are from the immediate neighborhood and area. I too will not be able to support this motion. I wanted to quickly run through the base of determination, sort of my judgment on those items. I do believe it'll be, harmonious with the master plan in the sense that from a general business use, it is a retail establishment. I do agree with Commissioner Douglas and Fournier in the sense that we need to just simply judge this particular proposal based on the merits of what they are, and filter through all the misinformation or misunderstandings that were brought up in all the public comments. So that's what I'm doing here in the sense that by the letter of the law, yes, it fits the master plan and the general business distinction. Will the design be harmonious? I believe it will. It's going to be taking a currently vacant building and improving it from a visual perspective. So I do believe that is a positive. The next item here, it will not be hazardous or disturbing to existing uses. This is where I tend to have a bit of an issue. I have no doubt that if this business were to be allowed in this location, that it would in fact be a successful business. And that would mean that it would have several customers. Now, I certainly appreciate the applicant's statement about making provisions for their employees to help deal with that issue. But I do believe that this would be a little bit be detrimental to the neighborhood in terms of after looking at the area, seeing how closely not only homes and driveways are to this business, that the customers of the business will really have no choice but to park either in the neighborhoods or in front of other businesses, which is their right. Those are both public areas to park. But I do see that as a negative for the neighborhood. Will it be an improvement to the city and the vicinity? Again, yes, I believe it will. It's taking a vacant rundown building and improving it from that perspective. Is it adequately served by services? Again, I have an issue with this from a parking perspective. I understand that it is grandfathered in. It is considered to still be a retail use, so no additional requirements are necessary there, but I do believe it is underserved for parking of this use, even as a retail establishment. I do not believe there'll be any additional public costs as it relates to this. No additional police or fire costs. The last item is consistent with the intent purposes of the chapter with the zoning ordinance. This is where I agree with Commissioner Kluster the most. I just believe that there are too many instances in which what's being proposed is out of the bounds of what would be allowed under the zoning ordinance, and the variances that are being requested they are not slight. It's not a couple of feet short of a setback. It's significantly short of what's required, and so for those reasons, I will not be able to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Contino. Ms. Beakey.
Thank you. I think I'll echo most closely what Mr. Kluster said and agree with many of the points Mr. Gotina said. When I read through this on my own prior to hearing all of the comments and prior to going through this process, which I appreciate both very much from the petitioner side and from the comment side, my immediate response was that it again, is a retail establishment from a design perspective, and I alluded to this last week, that would be very nice as a jewelry store. But when it comes to the separation as a buffer from the neighborhood community, from the parks, et cetera, as many people commented on, I'm not comfortable with that type of business encroaching so closely on those homes. Generally speaking, I'm concerned overall in Royal Oak that we continue to look at our buffers and our zones between uses, and I would like them to be improved and made even a little bit, not less permeable, actually more permeable for walking and such, but a little bit more distinct in terms of what goes where. And quite interestingly, when I read through these materials again before listening to all the comments, my immediate thought was this business should be at Woodward Corners. So it's interesting that you went there to get the signatures because it's a large area. There was a choice to not put housing in that community, which I really think there should be housing, but you would not have this buffer problem. And the other place that came to mind, and again, I'm not a real estate broker, is the Meyer parking lot. You have standalone jewelry stores often in parking lots. There's a bus stop there, like Woodward, various things. So I think there are other places in Royal Oak that this business would be welcome. I think this spot is not the place for that business. And just a general comment and process. I've worked in a lot of different communities, and I've advised different communities on various issues related to citizen participation. And I would like to think about this for our own future in Royal Oak is, number one, we haven't updated our master plan in a long time, which we bring up now and then. Likewise, our neighborhood plans are in that master plan, but I do think it harkens to keeping these buffers and the neighborhood integrity, as some people alluded to. But the other thing I learned, for example, in Vancouver, British Columbia, engagement with the community in the immediate area of vacant structures is done over a process ahead of and trying to then encourage businesses that people themselves want to see in their community, which maybe can short circuit some of this back end process. This is not related to your petition specifically, but as a general comment. And I wonder how we could get into a better process of engaging communities about their walkable businesses and try to attract things that are amenities they'd like to see in their communities. I'll leave it at that, but I cannot support this tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Beakey. A few comments. Number one, I cannot support this also. I believe this zoning for this particular issue is in place for a reason, and I really would struggle with going beyond that with the particular zoning related to the variance that they're requesting for the church and school. I really appreciate the public comments, the 97 plus or minus. We had a couple of repeats. I think it's a very important part of the process. And I found it very compelling that we had that much opposition, but I also take exception with the pattern of misinformation. And so I tried to weed that out as some misinformation and background noise that to me didn't make sense, especially when you start creating personal attacks against certain individuals and representatives from the city. So I chose not to listen to those. And while I appreciate Mr. Cowan's explanation for a lot of the questions, I just think for me, while I appreciate this business, had it been just a jewelry business, it would make much more sense to me. And I do agree with Ms. Beakey. This is a good option for another place in the city, just not this place. So I'll also be voting. I also cannot support this motion. Are there any other, Ms. Douglas?
Yeah, let me point out that you can go to any jewelry store in Royal Oak. You can go to the Miner's Den and sell jewelry and obviously buy jewelry. So the only activity that will happen here that is different from what you would find at any fine jewelry store is that I can come in with my engagement ring and they'll loan me money against its value. And when I want to get the ring back, I come back and redeem it. I mean, that's the only activity that happens that gets classified as adult, and that activity will be invisible to the general public. It'll look like anybody coming in to sell a ring. I just do not find this to be that risky. And I will also say that the decisions about setbacks are in the hands of the zoning board. All we are doing is providing them the opportunity to do their job and determine whether these setbacks are sufficient or not. I think this is a very benign business model that poses no risk to the community.
Thank you, Ms. Douglas. I appreciate that. Any other comments or discussion on this motion? Mr. Gantino.
So I just wanted to respond to Commissioner Douglas' statements. I agree that I believe that portion of the business is in fact somewhat innocuous to per se, but the fact remains that it is that portion of the business that does in fact bring this applicant in front of us today, and because of that is subject to the same rules that we need to apply. And I agree with the statements of I think the business is a fine business. I'm just not sure if that particular location, based on some of the issues at play, is the right location for it. I do agree that I don't foresee an issue with any of the types of customers that come in. I don't foresee an issue with that service being offered by this business. I don't see an issue with the jewelry store. But again, at the end of the day, the fact remains that they came forward with an application that did include the ability to loan on the jewelry, which is what is triggering them being in front of us today, and that's what we need to judge.
Thank you, Mr. Gantino. Any other discussion or comments on the motion? So there is a motion on the table to move forward with the special land use by Ms. Douglas and supported by the mayor. Not seeing any other discussion, we should call for the roll call vote. Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Ms. Beakey.
No.
Mr. Klooster.
No.
Mr. Gantino.
No.
And I'm a no. Motion fails. Beakey, Klooster.
Chairman?
Yes.
Could I ask, in order to clear the deck, that the planning commission make a motion to deny the request for the reasons that you stated?
Yes, Mr. Twing. Is there a motion to deny?
Motion to deny the request based on the multiple violations of the proximity requirements for an adult-oriented business located in the zoning ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Klooster to deny. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Mr. Gantino. Any discussion on this motion? Mayor.
Yeah, I'll just add, similar to the point that was made, I really see this as a jewelry store and not an adult-oriented business. It happens to, as a very small part of its business model is the one part of it to issue loans. And so, I see this as a normal jewelry retail establishment in all regards. And I think this board, should evaluate it. And that's why we have a board, so people can apply to these gray areas. But given the fact that the previous motion was denied, I'm finding it, the worth of supporting this one.
Anyone else? Ms. Beakey?
Again, I just want to reiterate, as a business, again, if it were just a jewelry store alone, that would be fine in this location. And again, as a business, I think it sounds like a fine business, just in a different location that it would not have these buffer issues to residential, park, and school. So I hope that there's another location that would be amenable or amenable to the people petitioning.
Thank you, Ms. Beakey. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing any hands, then we'll call for the vote. A motion to deny by Mr. Klooster, supported by Mr. Gantina. Mr. Klooster?
Yes.
Ms. Beakey?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Ms. Douglas?
No.
Mr. Gantina?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So the special land use to deny has failed, or has been approved to deny. Mr. Twing, there's a site plan. Could you comment on that, please?
There's no point to discuss the site plan since you've denied the use.
Okay. Petitioner, did you have your, Mr. Krieger, Mr. Cowan, did you have something? I thought I saw your hand up.
No, I'm sorry. I just put my hand up. No, I'm sorry. No.
Okay. So we will not be moving forward with the site plan. Is there any other comments regarding this? If not, then we can adjourn. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks.
This thing.